Yo, what's good? It's Illmind. Welcome to my On the Radar beat breakdown. This is J. Cole, Love Yourz. Yeah. Man, how did Love Yourz, J. Cole come about? So first of all, I got to shout out my boy, Money Making Matt. So I met Matt back in, I want to say 2010, when he was working over at Universal Music Publishing. And we hit it off, met him in passing, and I used to just like send him beats randomly. And one day he hit me, he was like, yo, I'm A&R'ing for Dreamville now with J. Cole. Send me some vibes, if you have anything. So a couple days, put a pad together, made some new stuff, sent him a pack. And then a couple days later, he hit me back. He was like, yo, this one beat, blah, blah, blah. Save it for me. Cole really loves it. So then a couple weeks go by and I fly out to LA randomly for like a random trip. And Matt texted me. He's like, yo, Ill, where you at? And I was like, oh shit, I'm actually in LA. And he was like, yo, come pull up to the studio. Cole wants to play you this song he did over your beat. So I pulled up to this, he had like this big like Airbnb studio house in LA where he recorded Forest Hills Drive. And so I went in and met Cole for the first time. We were showing love, giving each other props. And he played me Love Yourz. He played me like the hook and like the first verse. And then he was just like, telling me like what the concept was of the song. And I remember just hearing that hook and I just immediately got goosebumps. I was like, man, this is like one of them ones. It might not be the biggest like hit smash record, but it just felt like one of those special songs from him. So we finished the song that day and then that was it. Papered it up and ended up being Love Yourz on Forest Hills Drive. So the reaction was really intense for me because it was less of, oh my God, I have a song with J. Cole. Obviously, like having a song with Cole back then too, was a big deal because he was always one of the best. And I always been a huge fan of his. But the deeper reaction for me was all of the messages I used to get and just like the stuff that would be said on Twitter about the song about like, yo, like Love Yourz, save my life. Or like, I was like, even like intense messages of like, man, I was like suicidal, but I heard Love Yourz and I decided not to like kill myself, like really like impactful, deep stuff. And that really changed my mindset. I think it put a battery in my back and it made me realize like just how powerful music is. And, the consumers of music are listening. They're listening to us. They're listening to what we're saying. They're listening to how we're conveying those emotions and what the music means. And so since then, I've made it like a priority to always make sure that like whatever music I'm working on, regardless of what artist I'm working with, I always want to try to like create some type of emotional impact. And not to say that I'm trying to make like super deep music all the time, but my priority now at this point is try to make timeless music or just music that'll last, for a long time. So the first time I saw Cole perform at the Garden, I think it was the Garden in New York, and I didn't think Love Yourz was going to be on the playlist because he's got so many hit records. And side note, like Love Yourz actually ended up being a hit record. It's 5 times platinum now, but when he performed Love Yourz live, like I got chills and I was like looking around and I saw all the people's reactions and saw his fans like rapping it word for word. And that right there was like definitely one of the most surreal moments of my whole career because they're singing it word for word, but like how impactful that record is. And so that was like a moment I'll never forget. So I grew up in New Jersey, and I'm Filipino, so my mom was a nurse, my dad was a musician. So my dad played guitar, he played drums, he he like composed his own music. So, you know, I grew up in a very like musical household. So like all of my uncles played instruments, they all sang. Shout out to my Filipinos out there. You already know you got a tito or tita like a sing crazy. Like, so, you know, I grew up in that environment. And when I started getting into hip hop, I started becoming really curious about making music and the intricacies of beat making and like, you know, how do they make these drums? How do they make these beats? Like, where are these samples coming from? So I became obsessed with the art of beat making. And so, you know, I would like collect vinyl. I was broke back then. So I used to go to the record store and buy like 99-cent dollar records or 99-cent records and try to sample from those. And I had this like really cheap sampler, which was like an Akai S20. I don't know any other producer who had it, but it was like the poor man's MPC at the time. And so I was using that and I kind of learned how to make beats. And so I was just always obsessed with that. But then growing up in Jersey, you know, I would try to make it up to New York and like try to network with people. I remember driving to Philly every weekend. I had a couple friends who used to DJ in Philly. So I would go to their, you know, spots where they would DJ and I would like network with other rappers and producers and stuff. But I was also online too, like going on forums and like different social media to like network with people. And I started to build like a little bit of a following online. And it just, honestly, man, it's been almost 20 years, damn near 20 years. And I feel like that same kid just like on the grind, but like the excitement is just, for me, it's just still there. Like I still feel like that same kid who's just excited to create new music and learn more about, you know, the art of music. And it's just become a crazy thing at this point. Yeah, so the way I got the name Illmind, so one of my good friends from back in the day named DJ Philly Blunt, shout to Phil, he used to do all the parties and stuff. So again, I'm Filipino, he's Filipino, so a lot of the Filipinos in Jersey were either DJs or dancers or not even really producers. I was like damn near the only producer, but I was with him one day and when I started making beats, he used to be the one friend that I would just show all my beats to. And I never used to show them to anybody. And one day I showed him my beats and he was like, yo, man, you got a sick brain. You got an ill mind. Like, how do you, and then I heard him say Illmind. And I was like, that's my name. So it just kind of stuck. And then we were burning CDs, like we were burning actual CDs back then. And I remember just on the CD, I would just write like Illmind beats on like my CD with the date. And that's how the name came about. I was making wannabe J Dilla beats. Honestly, like shout to Dilla, rest in peace. You know, I was studying Dilla and Pete Rock and Manny Fresh and Dr. Dre and Timbaland and Pharrell and all the usual names. And so, you know, those early days was just me experimenting, being curious and like figuring out how to make shit sound cool. That was my main thing, is just trying to figure out how to make something cool and just really making stuff that I liked at the end of the day, you know, and I still do that to this day. I'll never make anything that I don't like myself. So, you know, that's just kind of been the vibe since then. Top 3 go-to plugins. So first one I'm gonna say is RC20, one of the GOAT plugins at this point. I still use it, gonna continue to use it. Y'all already know what RC20 is, so shout out to RC20. Second go-to plugin, I'm gonna say Orange Clip, only because I don't use FL, I use Reason. And I love that limiter that y'all got, and I've been jealous of it for a long time, but fuck y'all. I got Orange Clip, it works. I'm not gonna say it sounds better, but it sounds just as good. And yeah, shout out to Orange Clip. And the third one, I'll say, third plugin, I'll say, this is kind of a cop-out, but I'm gonna say Contact, only because I have so many like third-party Contact instruments that I still use to this day. I have Contact instruments from like 2010, 2009 that I still use. I just feel like it's one of the most powerful VSTs out. So shout to Contact, shout to Native Instruments. So I created my own ethically trained AI model called Loop Magic. So you can go to loopmagic.com to sign up. But basically, in a nutshell, we trained it on all of my original music and all of my melodies and all my drums. And what you can do is you can prompt in a sound that you want, and it'll get you a sound, whether it's, you can download like a drum loop or a one-shot snare or a clap or like a trap melody or a soulful melody, however you want to do it. You can prompt it in the system and it'll spit out a royalty-free sound. So it's kind of like having your own private sound pack where no one else will have the same sounds, and it's a one-of-one sound that you can use forever, and it's royalty-free, and you can print as many as you want, as long as you remember. So I wanted to create a tool to solve the problem of finding the right sounds. I know you have all these different websites where you can download sounds and buy packs and stuff, but I just wanted to create like this futuristic kind of one-stop shop tool for producers to go to and download sounds. So definitely check it out, loopmagic.com. You're not gonna run into any copyright, DMC takedowns or anything like that. Everything's free and clear and original, so yeah, go check it out. I think AI is definitely the future. It's not going anywhere. I understand, and I'm really empathetic to people that are fearful of it. It definitely has implications that could negatively impact the music industry, but I think maybe this is just me being generally an optimist, but I believe that AI is and could be a powerful tool for human beings to use to improve productivity, creativity, workflow. I think that if used in the right situation, it could solve problems, it could save you a ton of time. And ultimately, as long as it's inspiring real human beings to be more productive and create better things for the world, I'm all for it. And I think in the case of music, generative music AI, I think we need to be careful and we have to be ethical, but we can't lose the fact that I believe it'll never replace us, because you're always going to need a human being behind the board to create a song and come up with an original concept and just bring a song home. So I love using AI as an assistant, a sort of co-producer in a way, and ultimately it's a tool. So I'm all for AI as long as people are using it ethically and understand how powerful it is. And, if it's helping you and helping your music, then I don't see any reason not to use it. Some do's and don'ts in the studio. Let's start with the don'ts. Don't make it about you, ever. As a music producer, our job is to be of service to the room, right? So we're problem solving. We're catering to the artist. Someone is paying for the time, and the artist is there to create a song. And so our job as the music producer is to help them create a song or more than one song and help them bring their vision to life by any means necessary. And so that takes a team, it takes a tribe. And as a music producer, you're part of that tribe, right? You're there either playing beats or co-producing, and then you have your engineer, and then you have your writer, co-writer, then you have the artist. You might have like a couple, managers in the room or whatever, but at the end of the day, you're a team player. So the don't is, don't make it about you. Like it's a very selfless position to be in, and you want to be a team player. The second don't is, don't be late. Don't be late. Do not be late. If you get called in to a big session or any session, you want to be the first one there. And the reason why is because you want to hook all of your stuff up. If you're going to hook up a keyboard or your laptop, make sure that's fired up. You want to understand all the people in the room. So you want to know who the engineer is, know the engineer's name, know who's coming, what time they're coming, try to get intel on what they're trying to accomplish that day, so that you're most prepared when they come. Because, if you get booked to work with an artist and you're 15, 20, 30, 40 minutes late and they've been sitting around doing nothing, that's gonna leave a bad taste in their mouth, number one. So they're waiting around for you because they're trying to hear beats. And so it's just not a good look on your reputation or workflow. So get there early. You know, if your session is at 8 p.m., pull up at 7. You know, pull up at 7. Someone will be there to let you in and just do some reconnaissance and make sure you're prepared. 2 do's. So the first do is label all of your music. If you're gonna airdrop a beat for an artist to go rap to or sing to, make sure your name is on the MP3 or wave. Make sure the BPM is there. And also what I like to do sometimes is put my contact information on the MP3. So I'll either put my email address or my phone number or both. This way, no one could get confused about like where the beat came from. Because a lot of times tracks and beats and songs could get lost in translation. You might have an engineer that'll import it and they don't rename it, or they rename it to something else, and then it's in the Pro Tools file, and then the A&R takes it, and then they weren't there, so they don't know who produced it. And then come time to clear it, and they're like, oh shit, we don't know who produced it, you know? So always just make sure there's something to backtrack so they can find you. So that would be the first do. The second do, I would say, in the studio is, just be cool, you know what I mean? Like, you don't want to be the person who walks in and just like makes everyone uncomfortable. Just be yourself, and you know, if you're nervous or you're confused at any point, just a good trick that I like to use, that I used to use, is just remind yourself that you're there for a reason, right? You were invited to be there. There's 2, 3, 4, 5 people in that one room out of 7.5 billion people, and you're one of them in that room. So, you know, that's just like a good way to remind yourself that, yeah, man, like I belong here, even though like this might be my first time, or I'm super like intimidated by this artist or this person. It's like, nah, they know you're there, they want you there, and you know, just be yourself and focus on what you do best. You know, play your beats and try to be of service as best as possible. You know, names. Okay. There's a bunch. Oh my God. I remember this funny time, this funny session I had. Humongous artist, like diamond artist. And the year was 2011, I want to say. 2010, maybe. And so I get called up to go to the studio with this humongous artist, super like household name artist. I'm not going to say who. And so, should I say the gender? Yeah, so I met him and he started playing me. He recorded to some of my beats. So he wanted to meet me in person and play me the songs he did over my beats in person. So he's like, I met him and everything was cool and it was like an honor and everything. So he played me the first song and it's just me and him. Like I'm standing here, he's standing next to me. And he plugs the aux in from his phone. He's playing it from his phone. And he plays me the first song over my beat. And I'm like, oh shit, yo, I can't believe this is happening right now in my mind. And then he plays the second song. And I'm like, oh, it's crazy, crazy. And then he plays the third song. And I'm going crazy in my mind. So then he plays the fourth song. And so while he's playing the song, I turn to him. I don't know why I did this. I don't know what got to me. But I was so like blown away and excited, and I felt like just like a little kid. I turned to him, and he's playing the song, you know what I mean? And I turn to him, and I whisper in his ear type shit, and I go, yo, man, this chemistry we got is crazy. I feel like I've known you all my life, bro. I was like, yo, I feel like I've known you all my life. And he looked at me, and he was like, where? Like, he kind of like shrugged it off, and then after I said it, and I turned back around, and then like a couple of seconds later, I was telling myself in my mind, I was like, why the fuck did you just say that just now, bro? So yeah, so that was kind of embarrassing, but it ended up being cool. I don't even think he heard me because the music was loud, but who knows? To this day, we won't know. So that was a funny moment. I have a lot, but that was hilarious. That was a funny moment. top 3 favorite upcoming producers. The first one I'm gonna say is this kid Telly. Shout to Telly. He's from Miami. This is me being biased, but fuck it, I don't care. I signed Telly to my joint venture with Empire Publishing, so he's actually signed to me, but he's so cold. He interned for me at my former studio in Miami, and he was the first one at the studio and the last one out. And I remember going into the room and he was playing beats, and I was like, yo, this is you? And I signed him, and that was it. So Telly is number 1, upcoming producers I love. The second one I'm gonna say is my man Mike Hector. Mike isn't really, I don't consider him super up and coming, but he just understands taste. Like, I feel like he has great taste. Like he, based on hearing his beats and the songs he's done, like he just knows how to make stuff that's like pleasing to the ear, and just, he knows how to use like the right kick with the right snare and the right hi-hat. So I'm gonna give number 2 to Mike Hector for sure. And then the third producer, damn, this is hard because there's so many. Third upcoming producer that I love right now, I'm gonna say Steven Schaefer. He's just kind of a beast, man. He reminds me of like me, a younger me, where he just isn't afraid to experiment. Like, he'll go from one vibe to another one, but he always manages to put some type of like creative flair in his beats, where like you'll hear something, if it's a trap beat, it won't be like your typical trap beat. Like he'll put a twist in there. And I love producers that do weird shit in their beats just to push the sound forward somehow and innovate something different. And honestly, I think we need more of that these days. So Dilla is the GOAT still to me, so that's number 1. It's so hard. Number two, I have to give him his flowers. I'm gonna say Boy Wonder. Wonder's a homie. He just is, his discography speaks for itself, but a lot of it has to do with just him understanding sonics, understanding how to make a hit record, but also understanding how to stay true to the integrity of a song, right? He's not just one of those producers that is just always trying to make hits. Like, he just makes whatever he thinks is fire and then let the cards fall where they may. It might be a hit, it might be God's plan, or it might be, you know, an album cut. It could be anything. So shout to Wonder. He's a leader in this industry, and you know, I'm inspired by him and what he does. And he's one of the GOATs at this point. You can't deny it. So number 2, Boy Wonder. So number 3, number three, I'm gonna go with Rodney Jerkins. Rodney Jerkins is an absolute pioneer in this industry. He pioneered that like 90s, 2000s R&B sound that we all love now. And he took a risk in his music and it won, you know, and he's worked with damn near everyone from Michael Jackson to Mariah Carey to Kehlani to damn near everyone. So shout out to Rodney Jerkins. He's one of the GOATs. Keep inspiring us, man. Yeah, so yeah, I just started a new position here at Empire in San Francisco. So I'm Senior Vice President of A&R on the publishing side. And, you know, this came about in summer of 2024. I was out here doing a couple sessions, and I ran into Martin Garrix. Shout to Martin Garrix. I ran into Martin Garrix, and he had invited us to go to his show that night. And so Ghazi and I and Moody, shout to Moody, we went to Martin Garrix's show that night. And I remember we were in VIP just like watching the show, we're hanging out. And Ghazi randomly turned to me and he was like, yo, Ill, I want you to move to San Francisco. You know what I'm saying? I want you to be a, you know, SVP over there, and I want you to, you know, help the squad and just bring your expertise and your creativity to the building. And in my mind, I already said yes. In my mind, I was like, man, I never knew this was like the next phase in my life, but I knew something like this was destined. I just didn't know it came in that form. And again, that goes back to what I said about not predicting. And you know, that's a 10, 15, 20 year relationship with Ghazi and with Empire that had to be nurtured to get to this point and take on that role. So yeah, you know, I get to be here at the studio and work with the amazing team here, the A&Rs, the producers, everybody here. There's too many people to shout out. And you know, it's an honor, really, really, truly an honor to be able to have this position and, you know, hopefully use whatever is in my mind and my creativity and what I bring to the table, hopefully use that to just bring everything up and help, you know, where I can help, you know, fit in where I can fit in. So yeah, man, big shout out to Empire. Empire is taking over the industry, taking over the world, and it's an honor. It's really truly an honor to be working with them at this capacity. So shout to Ghazi, shout to Nima, Tina, the whole crew, and Empire. Yeah, man, you know, I'm still very much a student in this game. You know, I've been doing this for 20 years, and it's so crazy to say that out loud because it doesn't feel like it. But, you know, for many years, just like doing the podcast and meeting with producers and just all the things that I've seen so far in my career, I've become obsessed with why certain things work and why certain things don't. And I know there's like YouTube videos of like how to do this, how to get placements. But I'll say this to you guys. Whether you're a brand new producer or an OG producer with Grammys or whatever it is, the one common denominator for a successful music producer, I will say confidently with my chest out, is you have to be comfortable with not knowing what the future holds. Meaning, be comfortable with not knowing if, you know, this particular beat is going to get placed on this album, or, you know, if you're going to, you know, meet this person or get a Grammy with this person. It's like, you very much have to just live in the moment. I know that sounds like wishy-washy and maybe corny, but being in the moment and being in flow and just focusing on right now, focus on the music right now, focus on who's in front of you right now. If you move like that authentically, you're gonna get far. Because the minute you try to predict your path and try to predict like what, when, and with who, you're never gonna win, because you're always just gonna keep guessing and you're gonna lose, you're gonna miss the moment. You're gonna make the wrong decisions in your path. So as long as you're in the moment and you let go of the future, not to say that you shouldn't like manifest thoughts and like have big visions and dreams, embody those dreams, but when it comes to action, like just make sure you're in the moment and you're not trying to predict your exact steps. Because if you were to ask me how I got all of my major placements and like the Grammys and the plaques and all this stuff, every single one of those stories is different. And every single one of those placements happened from just unexpected people, unexpected events, unexpected timing. You know, there's all these unexpected factors. And so, you know, there is no pathway to success. The pathway is just letting the universe sort of like guide you. So just, you know, I know it's a long-winded answer, but just, you know, be in the moment and focus on right now and, you know, you'll be straight. All right, this is, so let me show you how I made Love Yourz for J. Cole. So the track started with these pianos. The pianos really are just the main emotion of the song. Shout out to my good friends, Cardiac and Critical, for sending me this piano loop. This beat was, I remember making this beat at like 3 a.m, and it was just one of those random nights where I made like 4 or 5 beats, and this was one of them. And, you know, as soon as I heard these pianos, I like kind of immediately knew what I had to do with them. Usually when I hear loops or certain samples, I like to transform them and chop them and stretch them and do all this weird stuff to them. But these pianos were just so perfect the way they were. I literally just kept them the same and just built around it. So we start off with the pianos. And on top of that piano, we have this really cool string section to just give it more of like an eerie, emotional feel to it. So when you hear that string, that high string note that just like sustains throughout the entire 4 bars, when you hear it by itself, it doesn't really sound like much, but when you layer it with pianos and also this little low piano note that I felt like would just like accentuate that emotion, you get something that just sounds really good together. So this is that little piano that I added. And it's literally just one note of a piano that happens like every 4 bars. And so when you hear everything together, you really get to feel that impact and emotion in the melody. Right, so now that sustained string note makes sense when you hear it in context with everything else. And then from there, I just put a little drum fill here that I thought was perfect for it. Just to kind of get you ready for the verse. And, I just took that drum break or drum fill, chopped it up and time stretched it to fit the track. And then from there, we go right into the first verse. And really, the drums consist of 2 different kick sounds. So we have the first kick, and then you have this second sort of like ghost kick. It's a little softer. And especially with beats like this, when I do beats like this, I like to have variation and velocity between like certain instruments. And I try to make my drums sound like a real drum player can play them as well. So I like to have like certain dynamics and swing with certain drum sounds. And then for the snare, I got this snare from Jake One. Shout out to my boy Jake One. I believe it was on like one of his Snare Jordan drum packs, but it just fit perfectly with the vibe of this. And the snare sounds like this by itself. It just had like a nice swing to it and like the perfect ghost notes. And then I have this layer that I labeled air. And when you hear it by itself, you don't really think much of it. And what I was going for with this is, those like jazz drummers where they have like the brush sticks where they like take the brush and they rub it on the top of the snare drum. Pause. When you hear all of that in context with everything, it all makes sense. So that little air sound kind of fills in those gaps. Right, so that's the drum track. And then we head over to this little grunt sound. I feel like this little chant that I have here, it's just kind of like one of those sounds that you remember because it happens like every 8 bars in the song, and it's the first sound you hear when the first verse starts. And when I make my beats, I like to add certain textures and sounds that I feel like people would remember. And that was definitely like one of those standout, just like effects and sounds that's in there that like is so iconic. And, without it, you can feel the difference of it not being there, So then we move forward to another grunt sound that I have here. So this was actually my actual voice that I manipulated, and I threw it in one of my sample packs from back in the day called All Grunts Everything. If you listen to it soloed, I ran it through like distortion and like this really shitty mic that I had at the time, and I turned it into like that little grunt. And I just felt like it felt appropriate for this track, and it also gives it like a little grittiness on this part too when you hear it. So then we move forward to the hook part, or the pre-hook, and this is the part where I added a little bass line here. This is a synth bass from a VST called Vanguard, I believe it's by ReFX, and it's like, you know, a throwback plugin that is really good for like synth basses. It was one of the early plugins that you could use to like bend your bass notes up and down. So I did a little bit of bending on this bass line, and I really just followed the same bass notes as the pianos. So that happens in the hook part and the pre, and then halfway into that hook part, I programmed some hi-hats, and I used Native Instruments Battery 3. Shout to all you guys who remember Battery 3. It was the green one. And so I just programmed these hats on my keyboard. Nothing too crazy, real simple. And then when you hear everything in context together, it sounds like this. No such thing, no such thing. After that hook, we get into the second verse, and this is one of my favorite parts of the song. It's where a lot of the drum sounds drop out, and we only have the kick and the snare happening. So that part's really cool because, you know, it leaves more space for Cole to really just continue to tell his story and going into verse 2. And, you know, it's really cool because if you hear the song, it's the sequence of the song is the exact same thing as the actual 2-track beat that I made. So the way that I formatted this beat and all of the dropouts were exactly the same. Like Cole kept all the change ups. He didn't change like not even the smallest detail. And I thought that was dope because, like, you know, Cole is such a phenomenal music producer. Usually he'll probably touch the beat and like add stuff to it, move stuff around. So the fact that he just kept my sequence and all of my sounds exactly the way they were on the MP3, you know, really is like a testament to the fact that, like, you know, this kind of was like meant to be, you know what I mean? So we get through that second verse, and then at the end, what I like to do, especially with beats that sound like this, I like to have a section where in pop music, we call it like the payoff section, where you have all of the instruments happening at the same time. And it usually happens either in like a third verse or a bridge or like at the end of the song. And so in this instance, I have the bass, I have all the hi-hats, all the drum sounds, all the weird sound effects happening all at the same time. And you get something that sounds like this. And again, Cole, you know, kept that payoff going at the end of the song, which was really, really nice to hear. So, yeah, that's pretty much the gist of this beat. You know, again, like I knew this song would be special. I didn't know Cole would use it. I really didn't know what the song would be about. But while I was making it, I knew it had to be a song that had some kind of deep emotion to it. Definitely some kind of storytelling song. And, you know, God worked his magic and got it to Cole, and we made Love Yourz magically somehow. So shout to Cole, shout to Ibrahim, shout to Money Making Matt for making the play, Cardiac, Critical, you know, the whole Dreamville squad, everyone who made it possible. It was an honor. So thank you guys for listening, and hope you enjoyed. Yo, thank you guys so much for watching the On the Radar beat breakdown. Hopefully you took something away from it. I'm honored. Shout to On the Radar. Thank you guys for having me. Appreciate it. Peace.